So, last summer, my friends and I decided to take a trip to New York City we'd never been to before. We were super hyped, planning to hit up all the tourist spots, try out the local food, and just vibe with the city life. Since hotels were crazy expensive, we went for an Airbnb. We found this great apartment right downtown, perfect for getting around without a car. The reviews were solid, and the host seemed really cool and responsive. We got there in the late afternoon. The place looked just like the photos, modern, clean, with a killer view of the city skyline. We were stoked. The owner left a guidebook with recommendations for restaurants and bars nearby. Everything seemed perfect. The first night, we decided to check out one of the recommended spots for dinner, and then hit a couple of bars. We got back to the apartment pretty late, a little tipsy, yet mostly just tired. Everyone slept almost immediately. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up to this weird noise. At first, I thought it was just the city, traffic, or maybe someone being loud on the street. But it sounded closer, like it was coming from inside the apartment. I listened for a bit and realized it was this faint tapping, almost like someone was gently knocking on the walls. I got up and checked the apartment, but everything seemed normal. I figured it was just my tired mind hearing things and went back to bed. The next morning, I mentioned it to the group, but no one else had heard anything. We laughed it off and spent the day exploring the city. That night, things got a bit weirder. We were all hanging out in the living room, playing a card game, when we heard this low humming sound. It was so soft at first that we thought it was just the building's heating system or something. But then it got louder and seemed to move around the apartment. It would start in one corner and then travel to another, like someone was walking around humming. We all heard it that time. Alan decided to investigate. He walked around the apartment, checking every room, but found nothing. The humming stopped as soon as he started looking, and we couldn't find any source for the sound. We were all pretty freaked out, but tried to brush it off as just one of those unexplainable things. Later that night, we were all in our rooms when I heard the tapping noise again. This time it was louder and more insistent, like someone was knocking right outside my bedroom door. I texted the group chat, and within seconds, everyone was replying that they heard it too. We all met up in the hallway, clearly freaked out. The tapping was coming from different directions now, almost as if there were multiple people knocking on the walls. We decided to stick together and check the place out again. This time we noticed something we hadn't seen before. A small locked door in the hallway, almost hidden behind a coat rack. Alan tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. We were all standing there, staring at this door when the tapping suddenly stopped. An eerie silence filled the apartment, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Should we call the owner?" Grace suggested. I nodded and grabbed my phone, sending a message to the owner about the weird noises and the locked door. The reply came almost immediately, which was strange considering it was around 4 a.m. The host apologized for the noises and said the door was just a utility closet and nothing to worry about. They mentioned they'd had some minor issues with the plumbing, which might explain the sounds. It didn't really reassure us, but we decided to try and get some sleep. We all slept in the living room, feeling safer together. The next day, we were all exhausted and on edge. We spent most of the day out trying to enjoy the city, but the weirdness from the night before hung over us. We even talked about cutting the trip short, but decided to give it one more night. That evening, we were chilling in the living room again, trying to keep things light. Suddenly, the humming started up again, louder this time. It felt like it was right next to us. We all jumped up, our nerves already frayed. Alan, clearly fed up, grabbed a chair and started banging on the locked door. "If there's someone in there, you better come out now," he shouted. The humming stopped instantly, and for a moment there was silence. Then, we heard a soft, eerie laugh coming from the other side of the door. We all froze. This wasn't just a plumbing issue. Someone or something was in there. We bolted. We grabbed our stuff and got out of that apartment as fast as we could. We didn't even care about getting a refund or finding another place to stay. We just wanted to get as far away as possible. We ended up crashing at a friend's friend place in the city for the rest of our trip. When we told them what happened, they looked genuinely freaked out. To this day, none of us can fully explain what happened. The host never responded to our follow-up messages, and the listing disappeared from Airbnb shortly after. We've all agreed that the next time, we're sticking to hotels. Sometimes that local experience is more than you bargained for. I've been hosting on Airbnb for a while now, and it started as a way to make some extra cash, but it turned into a whole thing. I got this house from my grandma. It's got that rustic vibe that people seem to love. So it does well on Airbnb. Anyway, last month I had this group of friends book my place for the weekend. They seemed cool from their profile. Just some college kids looking for a chill spot to hang out. They messaged me saying they were really excited and had plans to explore the area, all normal stuff. When they arrived, they were friendly and respectful. They even brought me a bottle of wine as a thank you. I showed them around, gave them the rundown on the house, and then left them to it. The first night, everything was quiet. No big parties, no loud noises, nothing. I was like, sweet, these guys are gonna be easy. The second night, though, things got weird. It was around 11 p.m., and I got this frantic call from one of the girls in the group, Sherry. She was whispering and sounded scared out of her mind. She said, "We need you to come over. Something's not right." I rushed over, thinking maybe there was a break-in or something. When I got there, they were all together in the living room, looking freaked out. Sherry told me they were playing some drinking game, and one of the guys, Alex, dared another guy, Vincent, to explore the basement. Now, the basement is this old, creepy part of the house that I usually keep locked because it's just full of junk and old furniture. But somehow they managed to get it open. Vincent went down there with his phone flashlight, and after a few minutes, he came running back up, white as a ghost. He said he saw something moving in the shadows, something that looked like a person. The others laughed it off, thinking he was trying to scare them. But then, they heard noises, like footsteps and whispering. I decided to check it out myself. I grabbed a flashlight and headed down to the basement. It was cold and musty, and the air felt heavy. As I walked deeper into the basement, I could feel my heart pounding. I turned a corner and saw a figure in the far corner, just standing there, almost blending in with the shadows. For a second, I thought it was a trick of the light, but then it moved. I froze, my heart nearly stopping. The figure looked up at me, and I saw what looked like hollow eyes staring back. I backed away slowly, trying not to make any sudden movements. The figure didn't follow, but I could still feel its gaze as I retreated back upstairs. When I got back to the group, I tried to play it off, not wanting to scare them more than they already were. I told them it was probably just an old mannequin or something, even though I knew we never had anything like that in the basement. We decided to call it a night, and everyone slept in the living room, too scared to be alone. The next morning, they packed up and left in a hurry. I apologized for the scare and didn't charge them for the stay. Since then, I've kept the basement locked tight and haven't had any more issues, but every now and then, when it's quiet at night, I swear I can still hear those footsteps and whispering coming from below. So yeah, that's my creepy Airbnb experience. It still gives me chills just thinking about it. My family decided to go on a road trip through some scenic routes and explore a few quaint towns. We thought it'd be a good bonding experience since we hadn't had a proper vacation together in ages. Plus, we were looking forward to the change of pace and scenery. After a long day of driving, we finally reached this picturesque little town that looked straight out of a postcard. My parents booked a pretty-looking cottage on Airbnb for the night. The reviews were solid and the pictures made it look cozy. We pulled up to the house around 6 p.m. The cottage looked just like the photos, maybe even better in the golden hour. I remember thinking it was almost too perfect, We got inside and everything seemed normal at first. The interior was clean, well-decorated, and smelled faintly of lavender, like those potpourri sachets. The owner had even left a little welcome note with some snacks. My little sister immediately tore into the cookies. Anyway, after settling in, my parents decided to go for a quick walk to stretch their legs and check out the neighborhood. My sister and I stayed behind because, snacks and Wi-Fi. Priorities, right? It was about 30 minutes after they left when I started hearing weird noises. At first, I thought it was just the old house or maybe some animal outside. But then it got louder, like someone was moving furniture or something. I texted my parents, asking if they were playing a prank on us, but they said they were still out and wouldn't be back for another 20 minutes. At this point, I was starting to get a little freaked out, but I didn't want to scare my sister, so I tried to play it cool. I went to check out the noise, which seemed to be coming from upstairs. As I climbed the stairs, each step creaked loudly, making the whole thing feel even creepier. When I reached the top, everything looked normal. There were 3 bedrooms and a bathroom up there. I slowly opened each door, expecting to find, I don't know what really, but there was nothing. No one. I was about to head back downstairs when I noticed something odd. The door to the attic was slightly ajar. Now, I'm not usually the type to go exploring creepy places, but curiosity got the better of me. I mean, it was just an attic, right? I pushed the door open, and the creaking noise it made sent chills down my spine. The attic was dark, with only a small window letting in some moonlight. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. There were a bunch of old furniture and dusty boxes, and then I saw it. In the corner, there was a small, old-fashioned rocking chair. It was rocking back and forth slowly, as if someone had just gotten up from it. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. There was no breeze, no reason for it to be moving. I got out of there so fast, practically flying down the stairs. I grabbed my sister, who was blissfully unaware, still munching on cookies, and told her we were going outside to wait for our parents. She hesitated a bit, but followed me out. When my parents got back, I told them what happened. They brushed it off at first, saying it was probably just a draft. But then, my mom went pale. She had found something weird, too. In the master bedroom, the closet door was open, and she was sure she had closed it before they left. We tried to shake it off and enjoy the rest of the evening, but there was this tension in the air. My dad kept saying we were just letting our imaginations run wild. We all decided to turn in early. My sister and I shared a room, and my parents took the master bedroom. I couldn't sleep, though. Around midnight, I heard what sounded like whispering. I thought it was my sister at first, but she was fast asleep. The whispering grew louder, and it sounded like it was coming from inside the room. I sat up, trying to pinpoint the source. That's when I noticed the closet door. It was slowly opening. I felt like I was in a horror movie, paralyzed with fear. I finally managed to wake my sister and told her to be quiet. We huddled together, watching the closet door. It opened fully, and we heard footsteps. There was no one there, but we heard it, clear as day. We bolted out of the room, screaming for our parents. My dad searched the house, but he didn't find anything. At this point, we were all too freaked out to stay. We packed up our stuff and left, driving to the nearest motel. The next day, my mom contacted the owner, who seemed genuinely shocked. They said they'd never had any complaints like this before. We left a review, but not the full story, just that we had an unsettling experience, and left early. To this day, I have no idea what was in that house. Maybe it was just old and creaky, but those footsteps and the rocking chair, I don't think I'll ever be able to explain it. So, yeah, that's my family's Airbnb horror story. We laugh about it now, but I can still feel the fear whenever I think about that night. Safe to say, we stick to hotels now. My friends and I decided to go on this epic weekend getaway. We found this cool-looking Airbnb in a small town, a few hours away from the city. The pics looked great, and it had good reviews, so we booked it without a second thought. The group was me, William, his girlfriend Sophia, Henry, and Lucas. We were all super pumped. The plan was simple: chill, have some beers, and just unwind from our hectic city lives. When we finally arrived, the house looked just like the pics. It was this big, old Victorian-style house. The owner, Mr. Miller, greeted us at the door. He was this friendly old guy, maybe in his late 60s. He gave us a quick tour, showed us how to work the ancient heating system, and then handed us the keys. "Feel free to explore the house," he said with a smile. "But I'd appreciate it if you didn't go into the basement. It's just some old junk down there, and it's not safe." No problem, we thought. Who wants to mess around in a creepy basement anyway? The first night was chill. We grilled some burgers, played some board games, and just hung out. The house had this weird, old-timey charm to it. The furniture was antique. The floors creaked with every step, and there was this musty smell that reminded me of my grandparents' attic. But it added to the vibe. Things started getting weird the second night. We were all in the living room watching a movie when we heard this loud thud from upstairs. We all jumped. Henry laughed it off and said it was probably just the house settling. But then it happened again, louder this time. It sounded like something heavy had fallen, We paused the movie and looked at each other. Lucas, who's usually the skeptic, suggested we go check it out. So we grabbed our phones and headed upstairs. The hallway was dark and the only light was from our phone flashlights. We checked each room, but nothing seemed out of place. Just as we were about to head back downstairs, we heard another thud, this time from the attic. Now, the attic was one place Mr. Miller hadn't shown us. The entrance was a small hatch in the ceiling with a pull-down ladder. William, being the curious guy he is, decided he was going up there. He pulled down the ladder and started climbing. "Dude, be careful," I said, half joking, half serious. When William reached the top, he shone his flashlight around. "Guys, you need to see this," he called down. We all climbed up one by one. The attic was filled with old furniture, dusty boxes, and all sorts of random stuff. But what caught our attention was a small door on the far wall. It was padlocked. "What do you think's in there?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling a bit. "No idea," William replied, "but I'm not about to find out." We agreed it was best to leave it alone and headed back downstairs, but the atmosphere had changed. We were all on edge, and every little noise made us jump. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing creaks and whispers, like someone was walking around the house. I got up to get some water and found Henry in the kitchen, looking just as spooked as I felt. "Dude, I swear I saw someone standing in the hallway," he said. "But when I turned on the light, there was no one there." We decided to wake the others and check the house again. As we walked down the dark hallway, we heard a noise coming from the basement door. It was like scratching, faint but unmistakable. "Nope, nope, nope," Sophia said, backing away. "I'm not dealing with this." But William, being the idiot he is, decided to open the basement door. The scratching stopped and there was only silence. He flicked on the light, and we all peered down the stairs. The basement was just a dark, empty space filled with old stuff. "See, nothing," William said, but his voice was shaky. We closed the door and tried to go back to bed, but sleep was impossible. Every noise seemed amplified, and the house felt like it was closing in on us. We decided we were leaving first thing in the morning. At dawn, we packed up and got the hell out of there. As we were leaving, Mr. Miller showed up. He looked surprised to see us leaving so early. "Is everything all right?" he asked, genuinely concerned. "Yeah, just change of plans," I lied. "Thanks for the stay." We drove back to the city in silence, each of us lost in our thoughts. Later, we found out from some locals that the house had a dark history. Apparently, Mr. Miller's wife had gone missing years ago, and there were rumors that she was still somewhere in the house, haunting it. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but after that weekend, I'm not so sure anymore. We haven't talked much about it since, and none of us are eager to book another Airbnb anytime soon.